Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. And you join me on a very grey, miserable, rainy day here in New York City. But what better day than to do a watch review? But I'm not doing any particular watch review today. This is a very special comparative duel between the Omega Seamaster Co-Axial in blue. This is the mid-size version, but for the sake of the review, it will also be representing its bigger brother, the full size. They're essentially the same, it's just a size difference. So we have this on the blue corner, and then on the red corner we have the iconic Rolex Submariner ceramic. I've always wanted to compare a Seamaster to my Submariner, but I never had the ceramic version before. Those of you who follow the show know that I've had countless Seamasters. A long time coming, and finally I managed to save up and get one, so I'm really excited about this. So anyway, two absolutely iconic, fantastic watches. Now please bear in mind that the grading system and the marks are purely my own opinion. They are not anything set in stone. I may return, do another review in a year's time, see how I feel about the pieces, see if anything has changed, and that would actually be quite an interesting video to do. But in the meantime, let's just look at these. I'll try and be as objective as I can, but you know, please bear in mind that it is my opinion, and also it's worthy to point out that these two watches are probably they spark the most conversations and arguments amongst watch lovers and fans of horology. And I would just like to say that, you know, look, if you're into your Rolexes and you can't stand Omega or vice versa, let's not argue amongst ourselves. We share the same passion. So, you know, just bear that in mind. You know, it's the people that don't like wristwatches that you should be worried about and should be venting your frustration towards, not fellow, you know, enthusiasts. So anyway, guys, without further ado, let's dive in, pun kind of intended, into the actual nitty-gritty of these two fantastic pieces. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. And finally, the duel a lot of you have been waiting for, something that I've been wanting to do for many years. In fact, I'm really privileged finally to be in a position where my collection actually has a Seamaster and a Submariner of the equivalent kind of age. You know, they're both ceramic. They're both the equals, infamous rivals. Both so similar, yet so different at the same time. A really fascinating group of watches. Now, as I do this, you're going to hear, unfortunately, as I do this review, you're going to hear a lot of drilling and work being done. Unfortunately, part of my building is being renovated, so you're going to hear a lot of that in the background, so I do apologize. Anyway, let's get on with the duel. Now, as I explained, this is purely my opinion, so you may completely disagree, and if you do, please let me know why in the comments below. Well, obviously, you know, taste and these kind of things are not as subjective, but I will try and be as unbiased as possible. So, on the right, we have the infamous Rolex Submariner. This is the 2011 ceramic sub. I forget the reference number, but it will be down in the description. And then, of course, the Seamaster, the Co-Axial Seamaster. This is the mid-size, but as I explained on the intro, it's pretty much exactly the same as the full size. The size being the only difference, obviously. Slight different, you know, placement of the logo and stuff. Obviously, the bigger one is more spread out, but they're essentially the same watch. So in its place, this will be representing both the mid-size and the large. And we have two columns, standard format. We have 10 categories, marks out of 10, and then a total score at the bottom. So the first thing we're going to talk about is value. The Rolex would have got a 10 out of 10, but I do feel that they are priced ridiculously high. Some say justifiably so, but at the end of the day, it is a steel piece. There's a lot more that goes into the pricing of this, but it still remains a high score. Would have got a 10 out of 10 if maybe they were priced a little less exorbitantly. But that is the demand. There is such a demand for this watch. So at the same time, it does keep the score high because the resale value of these is pretty unbeatable in the watch world. There is such a demand for this watch, and understandably so. It is a classic. Almost a 10, but I think a really strong 9. On the other hand, we have the Omega Seamaster. Now, it gets an 8. Just gets an 8 in my opinion. I think the value is they're priced retail a lot more realistically, thus the high score, but they don't hold their value as well. So, you know, it's not going to get a 10 out of 10. But I think they are more modestly priced, and I think the retail price on these is a lot more realistic than it is on the sub. And that's the only reason the sub doesn't get 10 out of 10, because I do think that paying retail for a Submariner is a little bit over the top these days. You know, let's be honest. I mean, even if you're mega rich, you know, is that high price really justified? And that's a whole other discussion in itself. If you want to lend your 2 cents, please do so in the comments below. So I think the Omega gets a strong 8. It would have got even higher had the resale value been as competitive as the Rolex, but they do hold their value pretty well. Not as well as the Submariner, but you know, a solid 8, a respectable 8, I think is perfectly fine. Okay, moving on. Design. When we talk design, we're talking about the thought that has gone into the watch. How usable is it? How is the design practical? Is the design beautiful and practical? Is it a good balancing act? Now, the Rolex Sub gets a 10 out of 10. For me, this watch, every single part of this watch has been so carefully designed. This really is the pinnacle of the Submariner's evolution. It's a very gradual, careful design process that's gone into this. It's just unbeatable. I've never seen a watch that, you know, every single part of this watch has been impeccably done, from the crown, from the diver extension to the clasp, you know, vastly superior over the previous version. It really is an evolutionary step. Previous Submariners are a bit like, you know, they're a little bit rough around the edges, but this really has been perfected. I find it very hard to find fault with any of its design. I wouldn't say it's perfection, and of course 10 out of 10 is the perfect mark, but there is no such thing as perfection in a design. But I gave it a 10 out of 10 because it comes damn close to it. You know, there's a reason why the Submariner is in the top 100 of the world's most famous and iconic designs of all time, and this is according to I think the Design Museum in London, but it is highly regarded as one of the most iconic designs of watches of all time. So I can't give it anything else but a 10. This ceramic sub really is the evolutionary next step in its constant evolving but very gradual evolving legacy. On the other hand, the Omega comes close second. To me, the design of the Omega is iconic in its own right. They obviously share a lot of characteristics and bezels and all the rest of it, being dive watches, but essentially the design of this is vastly different. You know, from the scalloped edge of the bezel to this helium thing to the engraving on the back. You know, it's a totally different design, yet essentially it's the same thing, and that's why I give it such a strong 9. It would have got 10 out of 10, but it just doesn't have that evolutionary legacy and influence that the Rolex Submariner has. But it is a very strong mark, and respectably so, because I really feel that the Seamaster has come a long way since the 90s, and I think these newer ones with the coaxial and these beautiful glossy blues and ceramic bezel really is a fantastic design. It's taken a already strong design and made it that much better. It's just finessed all those things that and really brought it into the 21st century. Okay, next we have the movement. Of course, we have the 2500 coaxial movement. I've given it a 9 because it's extremely impressive movement. It is it's highly accurate. Of course, it is COSC certified, the same I believe for the Rolex Submariner. So really here we have two amazing movements. Now the Rolex Submariner would have got 10 out of 10, but I feel that you know, in this day and age there are better movements for the money out there. So I wouldn't say it's top dog, especially for the amount of money you pay for the Rolex. There is a really wide selection that you can go for that I think are better for the money, but that's just my opinion. Of course it is in-house, and it would have got probably a 10 had this review been, you know, 5-6 years ago, but times have changed, and the money you pay for this, there are some amazing movements out there with superior accuracy, superior power reserve, but the quality of Rolex is you know, very hard to beat. So that's why it still gets a really high score. And I think the coaxial is you know, with its improved accuracy, its superior power reserve over the Rolex, in my opinion, it's neck and neck. And in the time I wear these pieces, I find that the Omega tends to be a little bit more accurate. I don't know if you guys find that, but please let me know if you find the same results. The coaxial really is a strong movement in my opinion. So moving on, again, brand prestige. Well, it's no surprise that Rolex gets 10 out of 10. Can it really get any other mark? There's no other brand that has as strong prestige, that is as instantly recognizable. You can sell it anywhere in the world, people know the brand. You know, it doesn't matter how ignorant you are of horology, everybody's heard of Rolex. It's an unbelievable heritage, unbelievable prestige. It just, nobody comes close. I mean, the achievements of Rolex, it's just, you know, I don't have to justify it. It's 10 out of 10, you know. I could talk about it all day. Omega for me are a close second. You know, are they better than Rolex? I mean, this is the debate that's going to be going on until the end of time. And please, you know, I don't take sides on this. You know, sometimes I prefer my Omegas, sometimes I prefer my Rolexes. It's just, it really is how I feel that day. But for me, you know, if we're going to be subjective, there's no denying that Rolex is a brand like no other and has got the edge over Omega. But Omega, like I said, are in a close second, and that's why I gave it a really respectable 9. So moving on, quality. Well, is it a surprise? 10 out of 10 here again for the Rolex Submariner. I mean, to me, I have yet to own a watch that I think is superior in quality to the Submariner. Some of you may say, well, do you think it's better than Patek JLC or something like that? Well, you know, I haven't owned those pieces, and that's just because I'm not ready to. I'm still a relatively young guy. I still like my sports watches. I think I will get into that later on in life, and it will be interesting, and hopefully, you know, the channel will still be going, and we'll be able to share that experience together. But what I wanted to say is that so far for me, the quality, the pinnacle, or the benchmark is the quality of Rolex, and I compare everything to a Rolex, really. I mean, a lot of watch people do, so that's why they get 10 out of 10. Again, very similar to the brand prestige. You know, Omega come a close second to me. You know, Omega are fantastic, but they just don't have, there's just something missing that brings it up that Rolex level. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think, you know, I'd have to probably go and visit both of their factories and really go into it at a more profound level than just, you know, a simple score out of 10. It's a very difficult thing to describe, but it's just that it's a feeling you get from handling the pieces. They are great, but there's just something that makes that Rolex has that you feel it. It's just that bit better, and I can't put my finger on it. Maybe you guys can describe it better, but Omega, especially in the last decade, really have kind of caught up, and they're almost encroaching on the Rolex's dominance of kind of quality. Anyway, so moving on. Next we have style. Now this is purely aesthetics. This, for me, the Submariner gets a 10. It's just such a classy, it's understated, yet it's kind of a little bit flashy with the ceramic. It's, for me, it encompasses everything I want in a watch. It is a status symbol, but at the same time it's a very stylish one. It's not brash, it's not vulgar, it's not over the top. It's just an absolute beautiful thing to look at, and it kind of goes back into design, this idea of wearing an iconic classic design, one of the most iconic designs of all time. It's just a pleasure to look at, you know, and even though I've had this for years now, I still get just as much pleasure from looking at it. So it's a really special piece, and its style is not like no other. It's a style leader, it's a style icon. That's why it takes the edge over the Omega. Now the Omega, its style is a little bit more divisive than the Submariner, you know, because some people really don't like the helium escape valve, but you could say the same thing about the Cyclops on the Sub. But of course you can get the no date Sub, so you can essentially get it without it, whereas the Omega, you know, you're always going to have this escape valve. It's just part of its design, it's part of its style. Some people might not like it. Also, you know, the wave dial, some people like that, some people hate it. It's a lot more divisive than the Submariner. The Submariner, you know, you don't tend to see that many people that don't like the Submariner. It's very uncommon. But there are people who don't like the Submariner out there. And most of the time, I find it's due to their own kind of insecurity. Like, you know, you find that the most people that hate on the Submariner are people that either they can't afford it, and they really want it, you know, or, you know, it's a very weird thing. Whereas the Seamaster is a little bit more divisive, and I think an 8 is a more solid score. Stylistically, the Submariner, I think, goes with a vaster range of attire. It can be quite dressy, and I know it's a sports watch, but I feel that the Sub is a little bit more dressy. Even on the bracelet, I have to say that there's just something a little bit more snazzy, a little bit more smart about the Submariner. I can't quite figure it out, but anyway. So that's a solid, respectable 8, and you know, of course, 10 out of 10 for the Sub. Moving on, versatility. Now, versatility is a really interesting subject. We're talking about how versatile is the piece. Kind of goes into what we were saying about what kind of clothes you wear in your personal style. These watches both get 10 out of 10. They are some of the most versatile pieces. You can put them on a NATO, you can put them on a leather. It changes the watch completely. Put it on a rubber, you know, it's a practical sports watch. Then you change this to a leather strap, and then all of a sudden it's a very dressy kind of snazzy number. The same can be said about the Submariner. It's extremely versatile. We have two of the most probably versatile watches ever, and these are such fun to dress up and have fun with straps, and it's a way of getting a new lease of life out of these watches. I can't say the same for every watch. I mean, some dress watches, they just look awful on various bracelets. These, they look great on all kinds of combinations and straps and colors, and they're just so versatile. So 10 out of 10 in that department. Moving on, performance. I've given both watches an 8. I think actually the Omega probably has the edge here, but what equals it out is basically the reliability of Rolex. The quality control process that goes into the manufacturing of a Rolex is second to none, and that means that when you get a Rolex, the chance of it actually going wrong are very remote. Of course, anything can go wrong. You can bang this about, but it is quite a robust piece, and its performance to me gets an 8. It would have got a little bit more, but as I said, we're living in an age where we have a lot of watches out there that are more accurate, have more power reserve, for less money. So you know, we've got to kind of keep that in mind. And yes, the Omega has a superior power reserve and is more accurate with the coaxial, but as I said, its quality control process in the manufacturing isn't as good as Rolex. So, you know, if I had to put money on one watch outlasting the other in terms of performance, I would probably put it on the Sub, just because of that high quality control. So really, they, at the end of the day, they both have their advantages and disadvantages. So they kind of tie an 8, and I think 8's respectable. So that's why I think that those scores kind of even out at both 8. So next we have durability. Now the Rolex takes the edge here, mainly to do with this steel that they use. I've found that their steel is more scratch resistant. As you see, this is in a 2011 piece, and you know, you see little little bits of scratches and little marks here and there, but really I haven't babied this watch at all. It's been banged about quite a bit. It's gone to beaches, it's been all over the world, and it still looks pretty good. The only thing that I kind of annoys me a little bit is the and I mentioned this before, is the engraved sunken kind of, the numerals on the ceramic bezel. It's actually a layered bezel, so they're, you know, dirt and stuff collects in there, and that can be a little bit annoying, but generally I find that the Rolex steel is a lot more robust and superior to the steel that in a lot of watches and in most other watches. So we get a 9. I think a 10 would be if it was you know, virtually indestructible, but you're never gonna get a watch that is completely indestructible. So I think a 9 is a really well-deserved 9. And on the Omega front, as you see, I mean, I've had this several weeks now. We're already getting little there's a little dents and little scratches and little marks here and there. The Seamasters do scratch a lot easier than Rolex Submariners. It's just the quality of the steel. It's a tiny bit softer, I think. Maybe in the field, we have still yet to see, well, I have still yet to see how reliable and durable the coaxial will be. But like I said, I don't baby my watches. This Omega really has taken quite a beating. I've been wearing it walking the dog, doing exercise, biking, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I'm really putting it for its paces. It'll be interesting to see, you know, a year from now where it's at. But I think a respectable 8 and a very respectable 9 for the Rolex is fair. Okay, lastly we have the X factor, that special something, that thing, that inexplicable quality that just lifts it above other watches, other brands. And of course, it goes without saying that Sub gets 10 out of 10. There's just something special about it. Maybe it's the childhood connotations with Bond. Maybe it's because it was a goal on my bucket list to always have a Submariner. I don't know, but there is something undoubtedly special about it. There's a magic. Even when I was a child, I remember the Submariner and kind of wanting it, and I still do now, even though I have it. It's such a weird thing that the lust doesn't go away. So for me, the X factor is 10 out of 10. I don't think there's a watch out there that has a kind of magic or a legend around it as much as the Submariner. So 10 out of 10, absolutely unbeatable in this department. I think the Seamaster gets a solid 8 again, and we're finding a lot of 8s and a lot of 9s. It's up there. It's respectable. There is a magic to it. There is that kind of Bond coolness as well associated with the Seamaster. So there is an X factor. Obviously not as iconic and as strong as the Submariner, but a respectable kind of X factor, I feel. And lastly, I just want to say that when it comes to the ceramic bezel, I must say, I think that the Omega has the edge here. Worthy just a note before we give the final scores. I just prefer it. The font, the way it's flat, it hasn't got the grooves that collect dirt. So that's just something quickly to bear in mind. Anyway, let's look at the final scores. And what are the final scores? Well, it's no surprise. Very respectable 86 for the Omega Seamaster, and of course a 95 for the Rolex Sub, probably one of the highest marks I've ever given a watch. Justifiably so. I hope you'll agree. Okay guys, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Please let me know what you think down in the comments below. Please remember that this is just my opinion. This is not written in stone, and you know, all of these marks can change, and I'll probably revisit this in a year's time, and we'll see if I still stick by this this grade, these marks I've given it. So anyway guys, please let me know your comments below. Like this video if you subscribed it, and you're probably wondering what's on my wrist while I'm reviewing this. Well, I got the old Saab out. If I'm going to be reviewing two such pure class watches, I have to have something equally as classy on my wrist, so got the old Saab on today. Anyway guys, so that's been the Jewel of the Ceramic Divers. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you next time. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Ciao.